following program is made possible by grants from the Prudential Insurance Company of America, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and the National Endowment for the Arts. Sylvia Fine-Kay's Musical Comedy Tonight 2. Demonstrating that the means can justify the end. Starring in alphabetical order: Annette Charles, Richard Crenna, Nancy Dusso, Sergio Franchi, Bonnie Franklin, Danny Kaye, Burton Lane, Jack Lemmon, Joshua Logan, Juliet Prowse, Lynn Redgrave, and Larry Storch. Featuring Lorraine Fields, William Mallory, Kathleen Cordell, and Richard Beard. Recreating highlights from Finian's Rainbow, South Pacific, Lady in the Dark, and Sweet Charity.
Good evening. My name is Sylvia Fine, and sometimes I am. Other times I sit around and hope for the best. Tonight, recreating in staging, scenery, costumes, and orchestrations some of the magic moments from four of the great Broadway musicals. Finian's Rainbow.
When I'm not near the girl I love the girl I need.
And I'm not the hero. The soul got a miss. Get your money back and this isn't love.
South Pacific.
Some enchanted evening, someone may be laughing. You may hear her laughing across a crowded room. What ain't we got? We ain't got days.
Sweet Charity. Lady in the Dark.
Jevgen Gorychenko, there's Glinkle Winkle Bortniansky, Rebecca Filinsky, Meter Malakirov, Zolotora, Fankosinski.
Charity has a story, point the way to glory, to all man and womankind.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Every young division comes to his decision. Go, hey, up, your
So here we have four great musicals that don't just stand there. They say something. Each is a musical with a message, and they all gave the lie to Sam Goldwyn, who said, "Messages are for Western Union." But the messages in these four musicals were surrounded by such smashing scores, so vastly entertaining and so wonderfully done, that the messages were delivered skillfully and carried unanimously. So let's start with the most paradoxical of the lot, with a strong social message and a downright funny book. And if you think an artistic success can't be commercial, believe me, there was a pot of gold at the end of Finian's Rainbow. It opened in the season of 1946-47, when the ads were asking which twin had the Tony. But everyone had a Polaroid, the new instant camera. Television was off the ground and in the air, with our first philanthropic used car dealer, Madman Muntz. And the first reports of flying saucers left the eyes of all Americans ditto. It was the year that President Truman fired off a sizzling note to a critic who panned his daughter Margaret singing, offering to personally punch him in the, to coin a euphemism, nose. He then created a new cabinet post, Secretary of Defense. The UN approved the partition of Palestine. Princess Elizabeth married Prince Philip of Greece. Jackie Robinson was the first black ball player in the major leagues. And England ended her rule in India, thereby putting the Raj in the garage. But the greatest controversy seemed to be caused by the new look of Christian Dior, soft and feminine on the outside. But if the understructure had been used instead of the Maginot Line, Hitler would never have gotten into France. But Finian's Rainbow did get into the 46th Street Theater, and it had everything a producer runs from in terror: whimsy, fantasy, and satire, which, as George Kaufman said, is what closes Saturday night. But not Finian's. The score is one of the best, written by two of the best. Lyrics by that master lyricist E.Y. Yip Harburg, whose credits include Brother, Can You Spare a Dime, April in Paris, and Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And music by Burton Lane, a composer of enormous melodic gift and musical skill, who, in addition to the score of On a Clear Day You Can See Forever, and many others, wrote with Alan Lerner the song with the world's longest title, How Could You Believe Me When I Said I Love You When You Know I've Been a Liar All My Life? And Yip and Fred Sadie wrote a delightful book about greed and bigotry, and sharecroppers and leprechauns, laced with wit and what Sol Hurok used to call warmth and charmth. It opens in Rainbow Valley in the mythical state of Mississippi, which I assume is on the border of Kentucky. With a group of sharecroppers abusing, confusing, and trying to stop the sheriff from auctioning off their land. We can't be bothered with a mortgage man this time of the year, 'cause spring don't care about a mortgage man this time of the year. The dandelions in the dusky dell don't give a hoot in hell. They're gonna smell without collateral this time of the year. So you know it's about sharecroppers, right? Wrong. It's about Finian McLonigan, just arrived from Ireland with his daughter Sharon and a magic crock of gold, which he stole from the local leprechauns. He has emigrated to this particular spot because at the end of Rainbow Valley, there's a little pot of gold called Fort Knox. And why, he reasons, did the Americans rush to dig the gold out of the ground in 1849, only to put it back in the ground at Fort Knox 100 years later? Simple. At Fort Knox, it grows faster. But Sharon knows that her father's logic is built on a solid foundation of moonbeams, and she's homesick. And she sings about it in one of the loveliest songs to come out of musical comedy, Miss Nancy Dussault, who starred in the New York Revival.
How it feels, is that little brook still even there? Does it still run down to Donegal, through Killybegs, Kilkerry and Kildare? How are things in Glockamora?
Now Og the leprechaun turns up and begs Finian to return the gold, because every day the croc is away, leprechauns are growing more and more mortal. He himself is getting very nervous, because he has not only grown 3 feet, but that mortal feeling is creeping up way past his thighs. He has a profound crush on Sharon and some other interesting feelings, which will be told to you tonight by an actor to his fingertips, a star in both films and theater. You know, in the theater, when we want to wish somebody good luck, we never say, good luck. That's bad luck. We say, break a leg. So we said it. And he did it. I guess he misunderstood when we asked him to be in the cast, because he put his foot in it. I want to introduce that intrepid leprechaun, Mr. Jack Lemmon.
Oh, when you look at me, I'm 90% mortal. At 100% miserable. Now, it's a frenzy. It's a frenzy I'm in. You're the only one that can cure it. Oh, Sharon, you're the only one. The only one, my Sharon. You're not Sharon. It's Susan the Silent. Oh, yes, I feel that same frenzy for you. Is that what it's like to be mortal? Oh, I'm beginning to like it. Oh, me heart is beating wildly, and it's all because you're here. When I'm not near the girl I love the girl I'm near. Every film that flitters by me, tis a flame that must be fanned. When I can't fondle the hand I'm fond of, I fondle the hand of hand. Ah, me heart's in a pickle, 'tis constantly fickle and not too particular, I fear. When I'm not near the girl I love the girl I'm near. And what if they're tall or tender? And what if they're small or slender? Long as they've got that gender, I surrender. Always I can't refuse 'em. Always me feet pursues 'em. Long as they have a bosom, oh, I woos 'em. Since I'm more and more immortal, I'm more and more a case. When I'm not facing the face that I fancy, oh, I fancy the face I face. For Sharon I'm caring, but Susan I'm choosing. Oh, I'm faithful to who's in his here. When I'm not near the girl I love the girl I'm near.
Now, meantime, we have met Senator Billboard Rawkins, who is garrulous, bibulous, and bigoted. Also greedy. A geological survey has just shown gold in the ground. It's only Finian's gold, of course, but Rawkins is apoplectic when he hears that an Irish immigrant has bought a piece of the land he wants. And he splutters, immigrants? My family's been having trouble with immigrants ever since we came to this here country. But much worse than that, on the rest of the land, a mixed group of white and black sharecroppers is raising a crop of mentholated tobacco. Wild with indignation at the prospect of any prosperity for the blacks, he calls on a law he wrote himself to throw them off their land. Sharon, who is unknowingly standing on the magic pot of gold, is so outraged, she shouts, I wish to God he were black so he could... There's a clap of thunder, a bolt of lightning, and voila, Rawkins is black. Now that brings me to the most telling point of Finian's Rainbow. Rawkins was a mean, rotten white man. So he's now a mean, rotten black man. Black, white, yellow, or green, he's rotten. He begs Og to change him back, but Og tells him he doesn't need a new outside. He needs a new inside. It's not his color, it's his character. So he changes that, and Rawkins is a changed man. As a matter of fact, at this very moment, he is out campaigning for the Senate for next year on a liberal progressive ticket. So unfortunately, he can't be with us tonight. But to sing his song, Begat, we've got somebody even better, the man who wrote it. I'm delighted to present one of America's most gifted composers, Mr. Burton Lane. Burton, I know you traveled 3,000 miles to get here, but I would travel at least that, or more, certainly, to hear you sing and play. Would you do the Begat for us?
Sure.
Thank you.
Brothers and sisters, the history of this world is the history of who begat who. The Lord made Adam and the Lord made Eve. He made them both a little bit naive. They lived as free as a summer breeze, without pajamas and without chemise, until they stumbled on the apple trees. He said, give me my cane. He said, give me my hat. The time has come to begin the begat. So they begat Cain, and they begat Abel, who begat the rabble at the Tower of Babel. They begat the Cones, and they begat O'Rourke's, and they begat the people who believed in storks. The white begat, the red begat, the folks who should have stood in bed begat. The Greeks begat, the Swedes begat, why even Britishers and Tweeds begat. And lordy, lordy, what their seeds begat. The Lats and Lithuanians begat, scrap Pennsylvanians begat, strict vegetarians begat, honorary Aryans begat, starting from Genesis, they begat, heroes of Nemesis begat, fat filibusterers begat, income tax adjusterers begat, 'twas natural and natural to begat, and sometimes a bachelor he begat, it didn't matter which ways they begat, sons of habituates begat, so bless them all who go to bed and heed the call of the begat. And that's that.
And so we leave Finian's golden dream and go to a newspaper man's nightmare 2 years later, 1948-9, when the Chicago Tribune headlined Thomas E. Dewey as the winner of the presidential election. But Give 'em Hell Harry fooled everyone but the people, and Mr. Dewey, known as the groom on the wedding cake, slipped on the icing and fractured his political career. Postage stamps went from 2 cents to 3, the 5-cent subway fare to 10, and Columbia put out the first LP, 33 1/3, which was immediately raised by RCA to 45. The Berlin airlift went into high gear, the People's Republic of China was born, and Uncle Milty ruled the TV raves, while Gorgeous George had a half Nelson on all the wrestling fans. Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller got the Pulitzer Prize, and South Pacific, which won it the next year, opened at the Majestic Theater, and so was the line around the box office. There isn't a lot to say about South Pacific, except that it had a lot to say. and that it was one of the greatest musicals ever done. The credits read like a page out of Who's Who. Presented by Rodgers and Hammerstein in association with Leland Hayward and Joshua Logan, booked by Hammerstein and Logan, based on Tales of the South Pacific by James Michener, music by Richard Rodgers, lyrics by Oscar Hammerstein, directed by Joshua Logan, starring Mary Martin and Ezio Pinza. What a dinner party. All of them inept, and all at the top of their form. The score was a blockbuster, topping even Oklahoma and Carousel, an almost impossible achievement, but so were Dick and Oscar. There are not as many songs in South Pacific as in some Broadway shows, but what there is, as we say in Brooklyn, is churse. It's a romantic piece set on a Pacific island during World War II, with a powerful message, deftly woven into two love stories. The principal story concerns De Beck, an attractive, middle-aged French planter, and Nellie Forbush, a young, bouncy, apple pie army nurse from Little Rock. The second story is about Marine Lieutenant Joe Cable from Philadelphia and Leon, a lovely Tonkinese girl. Looming very large in the love story and in person is Bloody Mary, her mother, for whom Dick Rodgers wrote the haunting song, Bali High, which gave every composer on Broadway a nervous breakdown because he wrote it in 5 minutes. The show opens on the terrace of De Beck's house. He and Nellie have met only 2 weeks ago, but as the music tells us, they are each separately aware that there is more than mere attraction between them. Rodgers and Hammerstein thought of a wonderful way to let us hear what they're thinking. And by the time the song is over, they're in love, and we're in love with them. Bonnie Franklin and Sergio Franchi on some enchanted evening.
Wonder how I'd feel living on a hillside, looking on an ocean, beautiful and still.
This is what I need, this is what I longed for, someone young and smiling, climbing up my hill.
Wonder why I feel jittery, jumpy, I am like a schoolgirl waiting for a dance.
And I ask her now, I'm like a schoolboy, what will be her answer? Do I have a chance? I know it is only 2 weeks. A dinner given at your officers' club. Do you remember?
Yes, I remember.
That's the way things happen sometimes. Isn't it, Nellie?
Yes, it is, Emil.
Some enchanted evening, you may see a stranger. You may see a stranger across a crowded room, and somehow you know even then, that somewhere you'll see her again and again. Some enchanted evening, someone may be laughing, you may hear her laughing across a crowded room, and night after night, as strange as it seems, the sound of her laughter will sing in your dreams. Who can explain it? Who can tell you why? Fools give you reasons, wise man never try. Some enchanted evening, when you find your true love, when you feel her call you across a crowded room, then fly to her side and make her your own. For all through your life you may dream all alone. Once you have found her, never let her go. Once you have found her, never let her go.
Very much present on the island is a contingent of CBs. Raucous, rowdy, and restless, they cheerfully fall in with any scheme dreamed up by Luther Billis, a CB chief with all the tact and delicacy of a hand grenade. Billis is played tonight by Larry Storch. At this point, they're angry, bored, and frustrated. Army nurses are strictly off limits, and the men want action, and not in a foxhole.
We got sunlight on the sand, we got moonlight on the sea.
We got mangoes and bananas we can pick right off a tree.
We got volleyball and ping pong and a lot of dandy games.
What ain't we got?
We ain't got days. We got nothing to put on a clean white suit for. What we need is what there ain't no substitute for.
There is nothing like a day, nothing in the world. There is nothing you can name that is anything like a day. We get packages from home, we get movies, we get shows.
We get speeches from our skipper and advice from Tokyo Rose.
We get lettuce doused with perfume. We get dizzy from the smell.
What don't we get?
You know damn well. Lots of things in life are beautiful, but, brother, there is one particular thing that is nothing whatsoever in any way, shape, or form like any brother.
Nothing else is built the same. Nothing in the world has a soft and wavy frame like the silhouette of a day.
There is absolutely nothing like the frame of a day.
There is nothing you can name that is anything like a dame. There are no books like a dame, and nothing looks like a dame. There are no drinks like a dame, and nothing thinks like a dame. Nothing acts like a dame, or attracts like a dame. There ain't a thing that's wrong with any man here that can't be cured by putting him near a girly, womanly, female, feminine dame.
Now Nellie, after firmly deciding that their ages and backgrounds are too dissimilar, and she's going to wash that man right out of her hair, discovers that she's really in love with DeBeck. She's crazy about him, as a matter of fact, as Bonnie Franklin will tell you.
I'm crazy about him. I'm as corny as Kansas in August. I'm as normal as blueberry pie. No more a smart little girl with no heart. I have found me a wonderful guy. I am in a conventional dither with the conventional star in my eye. And you will note there's a lump in my throat when I speak of that wonderful guy. I'm as trite and as gay as a daisy in May, a cliche coming true. I'm bromidic and bright as a moon-happy night, pouring light on the dew. I'm as corny as Kansas in August, high as a flag on the 4th of July. If you'll excuse an expression I use, I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love with a wonderful guy. Woo! If you'll excuse an expression I use, I'm in love, 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 I'm in love with a wonderful guy.
South Pacific also owes a great deal to another wonderful guy, Mr. Josh Logan, who brought the idea to Rodgers and Hammerstein, and we're very lucky that he's here tonight. One of the most distinguished directors in the American theater, Mr. Joshua Logan.
When I drop my hand.
Josh, I've waited some years to ask you this question, but I'm really very curious. I remember that opening night in New Haven, when everybody else thought the show was a smash, you were absolutely disconsolate and inconsolable. You thought you had a terrible flop on your hands. Now, why?
Well, I felt that I had ruined Mary Martin's performance by staging it wrong, and I took the full blame, and I wanted to go out and cut my throat. That's all.
I'm glad you didn't. Wasn't.
You know, for a couple of songs, one throat cut, that's not too bad.
Well, what song was so bad?
Well, Wash That Man Right Out of My Hair, which had been Mary Martin's idea. She said I could wash my hair on stage, and it would then dry in exactly the same shape in 2 minutes.
Oh, I remember she cut her hair this
Very
short.
short, you
Yes.
know, it was very boy. And so I went to Oscar and I said, what would you think of Mary Martin washing her hair on stage? And he looked up and he said, I'm going to wash that man right out of my hair. He immediately thought of the whole song. But Mary had to sing, I'm going to wash that man right. And as she did that, you saw the fuzz of the soap start, you see, just as she started singing the song. And at that moment, the entire audience started talking.
You're kidding.
The next day, Mrs. Emmon Williams said, darling, that part of it, she washed her hair was absolutely marvelous. Do keep that going. It's marvelous. And I said, but what about the song? She said, what song?
Did Dick and Oscar write all the songs that easily, really?
Well, I was in rehearsal for 2 weeks, and poor Joseph Cable had no song to sing.
No song?
I went to Oscar and I said, what about Cable's song when he meets Leon? Oscar said, well, I found a wonderful place where after this scene, he goes around the bend, and there she is waiting for him on the pier. And so pretty soon he came in with a song. This is Rodgers and Hammerstein. Right. Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein. Right. And I'm Joe Dokes directing, you see, but I'm listening. And I've got to put it across. And they sat down. And this is exactly the song they sang for Cable to sing. My friend, is coming around the bend. My friend is here. You know, I was brought up in Louisiana where you're taught to be very much gentleman, you know, and never express yourself if you have something ugly to say. I forgot that completely. I just said, that is the worst song I've ever heard in my whole life. I was very upset. The next day they brought me another song. It went like this. Suddenly lucky, suddenly my heart is lucky. Suddenly happy, suddenly my heart is free. And I said, do you think it's something that a Marine would sing after a night of passionate love? And then Dick said, well, I think I better leave here until this fellow makes up his mind. I said, Dick, I've made up my mind. I'm the director, you're the writer. You're the writer of the songs. If you want me to do Suddenly Lucky, I'll direct it. If you want me to do God Help Me, My Friend, I'll direct that, too. But I don't really think you want to.
Diplomacy's difficult.
And so he said, well, let's play him the song from Allegro. They'd thrown it out of Allegro. And here is the way it went. You were so lovely, my wife. You were the light of my life. La da da dee da 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 da. And they played this whole beautiful melody. I said, but that's a beautiful song, Dick and Oscar, really. I said, Oscar, do you think you'd write some more lyrics to it, some different ones? He said, of course. Well, I want to explain to these people that talented people talk that way sometimes. Well, anyway, they came back with the most beautiful lyric.
What's remarkable?
Younger than springtime are you, softer than starlight are you,
but the wonderful
warmer
thing,
than me. Now, the wonderful thing is that we heard that Ned and I went to another Rodgers and Hammerstein show 2 years later. And Gertrude Lawrence walked over Yul Brynner and said to a lot of children, getting to know you, getting to know all about you, suddenly lucky, I heard you mention before.
Josh, I wanted very much to talk about one of the songs in South Pacific that I think is the key song of the show, the song about prejudice.
I think it's the freshest and the most brilliant sort of attack of Oscar's that he ever made, and I don't think many people realize it. You know, it was based on race prejudice. What happened was that Nellie Forbush saw Emile DeBeck's two children, knew that they were half-breed children, and that their mother was a Polynesian, and then suddenly her Little Rock background began to make her shrivel. And then, of course, Cable fell in love with Leon. They went to bed together, and they loved each other passionately, physically. And then suddenly he realized, I can't take her back to Philadelphia. I can't marry her.
And he hated himself for it.
And he hated himself. And later in the second act, DeBeck and he were together. And Nellie Forbush came out and said, please forgive me, but it's the woman and you, and please don't ask me to explain it. It's something that's born in me. And she ran away. And DeBeck turned angrily away and says, it is not born in you. I do not believe it is born in you. And Cable said, it isn't born in you. It happens after you're born.
And then came
You've
that
got
wonderful
to be
song.
taught to hate and fear. You've got to be taught from year to year. It's got to be drummed in your dear little ear. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught to be afraid of people whose eyes are oddly made and people whose skin is a different shade. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be careful.
I think it was a lot because of that song that South Pacific got the Pulitzer Prize, don't you?
I think it was very much because of that.
Josh, thank you for coming. You've been absolutely wonderful. Despite Josh's terrible feelings on the opening night of South Pacific in New Haven, Mary Martin did have one hit song. It's in a show that the nurses are putting on for the men. It's Thanksgiving, and the show is probably a turkey. This is opening night in the Pacific Theater of Operations. Bonnie Franklin, Larry Storch and company in the kooky, corny, unmistakably World War II Honey Bun.
My doll is as dainty as a sparrow. Her figure is nothing to applaud. Where she's narrow as an arrow. And she's broad. Oh, where a broad should be a broad. 101 pounds of fun. That's my little honey bun. Get a load of honey bun tonight. Speaking of my sweetie pie, only 60 inches high. Every inch is packed with dynamite. Her hair is blonde and curly. Her curls are hurly-burly. Her lips are pips. I call her hips twirly and whirly. She's my baby. I'm her pap. I'm her booby. She's my trap. I'm caught and I don't want to run 'cause I'm having so much fun with honey bun. 101 pounds. Get a load of honey bun tonight. Luther, speaking of my sweetie pie, only 60 inches high. Every inch is packed with dynamite. Her hair is blonde and curly. Her curls are hurly-burly. Her lips are pips. I call her hips twirly and whirly. She's my baby. I'm her pal. I'm her booby. She's my trap. I am caught and I don't want to run 'cause I'm having so much fun with honey bun. Believe me, Sonny, she's a cookie who can cook until you're done. Hey, Bee and Sonny, Sonny, put your money on my honey bun.
Now, South Pacific and Finian's Rainbow were concerned with racial prejudice. The next two shows deal with two totally different sociological problems. Strangely enough, each revolves around a woman, one at the top of the social ladder, the other at the bottom. The first one might have been written today. The situations seem to be straight out of the pages of Cosmo or Ms., an unlikely amalgam of Gloria Steinem and Helen Gurley Brown. But it was written in the season of 1940-41, when America was busy holding its breath while a handful of gallant young RAF pilots held the fate of England in their hands. Never in the field of human conflict, said Winston Churchill, has so much been owed by so many to so few. But teenage America was happily into sloppy pants, bobby socks, and dirty loafers, and Joan Crawford had the biggest shoulders outside of the Teamsters Union. Penicillin was discovered, and a group of scientists really stretched themselves and came up with synthetic rubber. Joe DiMaggio had his 56-game hitting streak, and President Roosevelt struck out Wendell Willkie to win a third term. Our first big singing commercial, Pepsi-Cola Hits the Spot, was played 296,000 times at 5 cents a bottle. Academy Awards went to Joan Fontaine and Gary Cooper. Best Picture, How Green Was My Valley, and How Red Was Stalin's Face when Hitler backed out of their pact by invading Russia. But Moss Hart was on top of the Broadway totem pole after a dozen years of writing smash hit comedies with George S. Kaufman, 2 musicals with Irving Berlin, and 1 with Cole Porter. You see, Moss never dropped the name. He collected them. However, at this point, he was writing Lady in the Dark and writing it alone. The subject was psychoanalysis. Now, in 1940, that was pretty daring. Analysis was talked about in whispers, like a social disease. And Moss's aim was to bring it out in the open, like premarital sex, and show that analysis is not for crazy people, A normal neurotic will do. He was planning a straight play in which, as part of the plot, the heroine tells her dreams to an analyst. But he soon realized that since dreams are kaleidoscopic and phantasmagoric, a great law firm, almost impossible to convey in dialogue, but music could do it, lyrics could do it. Lyrics can cover time and space in 4 lines, and music can change mood in 2 bars. Now, in silent pictures, even the pianist at local bijou was given special music to give the people a feeling of mood and change of mood and locale. For instance, a bazaar in downtown Arabia. They went that away. George Washington chopping down a cherry tree. Italian opens fruit stand. German opens delicatessen. Chinese opens a laundry. Love affair goes sour. Brass band plays concert on the deck of the Titanic. But they can swim, and they land in Chicago. But as Julius Caesar used to hum, California, here I come. So you see what music and lyrics can do in a very short space of time, and Moss Hart knew that too. So to do the dream sequences, Moss called Ira Gershwin, and he called Kurt Weill, and together, this brilliant trio of talents came up with a theatrical milestone, which in less gifted hands could have been a theatrical millstone. And together they evolved a new style, moving with the greatest of ease from modern opera to musical comedy to opera bouffe, simulating the mixed bag that dreams are. This casual lacing together of styles and the high literary quality of the book made Lady in the Dark one of the shows that turned musical comedy into a generic rather than a descriptive term. It is now called musical theater, which embraces everything from musical comedy to musical tragedy. So the straight play for Katharine Cornell was transformed into an elaborate musical starring the legendary Gertrude Lawrence, who said to me one summer night, "I was so hot today, I just had to take off my nail polish." And it helped to create a new international star, Danny Kaye. Well, you remember him. He's my husband. Lady in the Dark is the story of Liza Elliott, the severely tailored editor and boss lady of a big-time, high-fashion magazine and longtime mistress of its publisher, Kendall Nesbitt. For several months, she's been depressed and panicky, can't sleep, cries a lot, and can't make the smallest decision, like what to wear, whom to marry, or whether the next issue of the magazine should have an Easter cover or a circus cover. She finally consents to see an analyst and is stunned when he points out that while she avoids all the trappings of glamour in her daily life, in her dreams, she is the ultimate siren. As the incomparable Ira Gershwin put it, compared to our Miss Liza, she's so glamorous, She makes all other women appear hammocker, schlammerous. The four men in her daily life all appear in her dreams, but they're strangely different. Kendall Nesbitt, her lover, is a head waiter. Randy Curtis, the movie star, is her lover. Charlie Johnson, her cocky and contentious Playboy advertising manager, is a preacher. And Russell Paxton, the gay fashion photographer, is a ringmaster. And now a scene in Liza's office, which leads into a dream sequence. Miss Lynn Redgrave as Liza, Mr. Richard Crenna as Charlie Johnson, and playing Russell Paxton, the part he created on Broadway, Mr. Danny Kaye.
Good morning, Liza. Charlie Johnson's waiting to see you.
Yeah, well, all right. You just give me a moment, please.
Girls? Girls? He's godlike, absolutely godlike. I mean, I have photographed beautiful men in my life before, but this one is the end, the absolute end. He's got a face that would melt in your mouth. He is heaven, absolute heaven.
Thank you, Russell. Have you got a minute, boss lady?
Not really. Can you wait?
Yes, but I'd like to settle it. It happens to be about the Easter cover. That old devil Easter cover. If you could just make up your mind and decide on a circus cover, I could get us a hell of a tie-up with Ringling Brothers.
Well, when must you know?
As soon as possible. I've got every big store in town set to splurge on circus ads. Would make a great issue?
Yeah, all right. I'll give you an answer as soon as I can. Is that all you wanted, Johnson?
Too bad you can't decide on that cover. I wanted to cinch that and leave in a blaze of glory.
Leave?
Got a better offer.
Where?
Town and country?
I'll meet it.
Afraid you couldn't.
Liza, I demand a showdown. An absolute, complete, and utter
now.
showdown.
I cannot talk to you now,
Do you
Russell.
realize what that bitch has done? She just calmly walked in, took my color plates after I spent 3 days putting the circus together.
Not now, Russell.
Not now. What is one supposed to do to get attention around here? Bleed in front of you?
Paxton.
Yes?
The dog department want to see you.
Oh, how darling of them. I just may spend the rest of my life there. Oh, if you have any luck with Sleeping Beauty, let me know. Really, Liza, I could spit.
All right, Johnson, I'll meet their figure. Does that settle it?
Look, it has nothing to do with salary. I'm taking less. But I can get the top job over there, and I'll never get it here. You married that desk years ago, boss lady, and you'll never get divorced. I know your kind.
Oh, do you really?
You have magazines instead of babies. Rage is a pretty good substitute for sex, isn't it?
Get out!
Don't think it hasn't been charming. Oh, if we need a good man over there, I'll make you an offer. Circus cover, Easter cover, circus cover. Make up your mind, make up your mind, make up your mind, mind.
Ladies and gentlemen, I take pride in introducing the greatest show on earth.
Liza Elliott's gargantuan three-ring circus, featuring for the first time the captivating and tantalizing Liza Elliott, the woman who cannot make up her mind. The charges against Liza Elliott.
What is all this? What charges? What for?
Whereas Liza Liza Elliott cannot make up her mind about the Easter cover or the circus cover. Secundo. Secundo. Liza Elliott cannot make up her mind whether she is marrying Kendall Nesbitt or not. Moreover. Liza Elliott cannot make up her mind as to the kind of woman she wants to be, the executive or the enchantress. And inasmuch as in a world where tumult and turmoil reign, these indecisions of Liza Elliott only add to the confusion of an already, as indicated, confused world. Therefore, be it resolved that Liza Elliott be brought to trial and be made to make up her mind. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce that death-defying trapeze artist and prosecuting attorney, Mr. Charlie Johnson.
I'm the attorney for prosecution, can't be bought or sold. For the jam she's in, there's no solution once the story's told. Your Honor, Mr. Ringmaster, I would like to call that fearless witness and lion tamer, Mr. Kendall Nesbitt.
Kendall Nesbitt.
Mr. Nesbitt, you are divorcing your wife so that you can marry the defendant, isn't that so?
Yes, sir.
And you were led to believe that she would marry you when, as, and if?
Yes, sir.
But now she refuses to make up her mind.
Yes, sir.
You gave her the best years of your life, and yet she refuses to be your wife.
Yes, sir. Am I to understand that you gave her the best years of your life, and yet she refuses to be your wife? Yes, sir. He gave her the best years of his life. She was, shall we call it, his mistress. 'Twas only for her he's divorcing his wife, and now the man's in a distress. The mister who once was the master of two would make of his mistress his missus, but he's missed out on misses, for the mistress is through. What a mess of a mishmash this is.
Gives her heart, but does not give her word. How on earth can a maid betray him?
Charming, charming. Who wrote that music?
Tchaikovsky!
I love Russian composers. There's Malachevsky, Rubinstein, Arensky, and Tchaikovsky, Sapelnikov, Dmitriev, Cherevkin, Krishnanovsky, Godovsky, Avtobuchov, Monoyushka, Wakimenko, Soloviev, Prokofiev, Teyevkin, Gorischenko. There's Glinkler, Winkler, Bortniansky, Rebekov, Felinsky, Meter, Kirov, Zolotorov, and Kwashinsky, and Sokolov, and Kopolov, Dukelsky, and Klanovsky, and Shostakovich, Boda, Dingley, and Novakovsky. There's Lyudov, and Karganov, Barkevich, Panchenko, and Dargomisky, Cherbachev, Skriapov, Vasilyenko, Saravinsky, Rimsky, Korsakov, Prosorsky, and Grachaninoff, and Glazunov, and Caesar, Kuikalini, Karpov, Pananov, Stravinsky, and Grachaninoff, Rumshinsky, and Rachmaninoff. I really have to stop. The subject has been well to Pananov, Grachaninoff, Rachmaninoff. We really ought to stop because we all have underdone enough.
Proceed with the trial. Mr. Ringmaster, I would like to call Miss Liza Elliott.
And about time, too.
Miss Elliott, you've heard the charges against you. Have you made up your mind about any of these things?
No, I haven't.
Can you give this court any reasonable explanation as to why you cannot make up your mind?
Yes, I can.
Your witness.
There once was a girl named Jenny, whose virtues were varied and many, excepting that she was inclined always to make up her mind. And Jenny points a moral with which you cannot quarrel, as you will find. Jenny made her mind up when she was 3. She herself was going to trim the Christmas tree. Christmas Eve, she lit the candles, tossed the tapers away. Little Jenny was an orphan on Christmas Day. Poor Jenny, bright as a penny, a reaper would be hard to find. She lost one dad and mother, a sister and a brother, but she would make up her mind. Jenny made her mind up when she was 12. Into foreign languages she would delve. But at 17, to Vassar, it was quite a blow that in 27 languages she couldn't say no. 27 languages she couldn't say no. Jenny made her mind up at 22. To get herself a husband was the thing to do. She got herself all dolled up in her satins and furs, and she got herself a husband, but he wasn't hers. She got herself a husband, but he wasn't hers. Jenny made her mind up at 75. She would live to be the oldest woman alive. But gin and rum and destiny played funny tricks, and poor Jenny kicked the bucket at 76. Jenny wants a moral, which she cannot borrow, makes a lot of common sense. Jenny and her saga prove that you are gaga if you don't keep sitting on the fence. Jenny and her story point the way to glory to a man and womankind. Anyone with vision comes to this decision. Don't make up, you shouldn't make up, you mustn't make up, or never make up. Anyone with vision comes to this decision. Don't make up
Lady in the Dark brings back some marvelous memories, and I've persuaded Danny to come out here and share some of them with you. But while he's slipping into something more comfortable, let me tell you a few of my favorite Morse Hart stories. He was a very close and a very special friend, and he lit up our lives for many years. His endearing delight in finding ways to spend money on himself was legendary. I remember the time he went to Cartier's and had them make a plaster cast of his right hip so he could carry a contoured silver tobacco pouch in his back pocket. And it was inscribed, "To Morse Hart, a prince among men, from Morse Hart." And then he bought a farm, an 18-acre farm in Pennsylvania without a bush or a tree on it. 2 weeks later, when George Kaufman came to visit, he was astonished to see almost 1,000 fully grown pine trees looking very much at home. "I bought them," said Morse, "and had them transplanted." "Of course," said George. "It was what God would have done if he had had the money." Is Danny now on his way?
Yes, I'm back here. I'm fine. Okay.
You're a very talented villain.
Now, did you tell them all about Lady in the Dark?
Yes.
You did, huh?
Yeah.
Oh. You know, we had some incredible people. There was Morse Hart. He went into Cartier's one day, and he said to them, I would like to have my behind, you know, fitted. Well, Morse finally got successful, and he went out and he bought a farm out in Bucks County. And what he did is he started to... Well, good night. It was very fun.
Come back. I want you to tell about, if you will, about the opening night of Lady in the Dark in Boston. That was one of the most incredible nights of our lives. Would you tell about opening night?
Moss Hart put a plaster cast on his and painted a picture of Betsy Ross.
You're hurting me.
Would you tell about opening night?
Opening night. Opening night of Lady in the Dark was in Boston. We had been rehearsing the show for 4 weeks, and I would do Tchaikovsky, and then Gertie would do Jenny. And nobody thought any great shakes. They said, well, you know, they're effective numbers and things, until opening night. Now, I went out and did Tchaikovsky and leaped back on the horse, and I had no notion that it was going to be as effective as it was. The number ran 38 seconds, I believe, and in Broadway parlance, it stopped the show absolutely cold. Now, I leaped back on the horse, and this was probably the single most exciting and the proudest moment of my life. And I stood there, and the audience was applauding and applauding and applauding, and I said, oh my God, if Jenny doesn't go over well, then they're liable to take out Tchaikovsky because of... And it was the only number I had in the show. So I was smiling and saying, for God's sake, stop applauding, stop applauding, don't applaud so much, stop applauding. Anyway, I got back on the horse, and Gertie looked over at me and kind of nodded her head, and then she stepped down, and I must say, the incredible genius of this lady, she was really a remarkably gifted woman, and she began to do Jenny unlike she had ever done it in rehearsal at all. She went, Jenny made her mind up when she was 3. And all of us on stage were looking at her. The audience was flabbergasted. And she finished the song, went back on the swing, and it paralyzed the audience, absolutely stopped it dead. And there we were, within 10 seconds of each other, 2 numbers, absolutely stopping the show cold. It was really a memorable evening. Now, that was on a Monday night. Wednesday afternoon at the matinee, everybody was all charged up. It was a great big hit. The show had gotten great notices. And I stepped down, I did, there's Molotowsky, Rubinstein, Adensky, and Tchaikovsky, Sapendikov, Dmitriev, Cherepin, Krichenovsky, and I had the sense that the audience really wasn't paying attention to me. So I looked over on the side, and there was Gertie Lawrence in the swing with a great big red handkerchief going. Now, there was no way I could go and say, Gertie, Miss Lawrence, honey, whatever, please, you know, it's kind of distracting for me and for the audience, and please don't do that because it's the only number. I couldn't go to Moss Hart and say, look, Moss, why don't you go and tell Miss Lawrence? That all sounded kind of childish anyway. And after the afternoon show, I told Sylvia, I said, look, I'm either going to stay in the show or I'm not. And there's no way I'm going to talk to anybody about this. That night, she came out to do Jenny. And she did Jenny made her mind up when she was 3. And she was having boom. And there was a laugh where there hadn't been one before. Oh, she went on the number, and suddenly there was another laugh where there hadn't been one before. She finished the number, got back on the swing, and she looked at me, and I bowed to her, and she bowed to me, and she never did the red handkerchief again. Listen, I have an apology to make. That number, for as long as I can remember, had been done in 38 seconds.
Now, I don't think we quite did it in 38 seconds tonight. And what I would like to do, if you don't mind, I would like to see if we can establish a new record here in the town of Los Angeles. I'll tell you what we do. There's Malachevsky, Rubinstein, Arensky, and Tchaikovsky, Sapelnikov, Dmitriev, Cherepnin, Kryzhenovsky, Godovsky, Artabuchev, Vonyushko, Wakimenko, Soloviev, Prokofiev, Tiomkin, Gorochenko, there's Glinkler, Winkler, Botniatsky, Rebekov, Felitsky, Metler, Balakirev, Zolotorov, and Kwaschinsky, and Sokolov, and Kopolov, Tukalsky, and Kanovsky, Shostakovich, Borda, Diglier, and Novakovsky, there's Lyudov, and Kalaganov, Markevich, Panchenko, Darubinsky, Chervachevsky, Rabin, Vasilenko, Servinsky, Rimsky, Korsakov, Masovsky, Angerchaninov, and Glazunov, and Sezanki, Kalinikov, Habanov, Servinsky, Angerchanov, Rumshinsky, and Nachmanov. I really have to stop the subject has been brought to power. How many? How many? 31 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, 31 seconds. Now, I want you to remember, in the sleepy village of Los Angeles, a new world's record was established for the rendition of Tchaikovsky. Bravo. Remember that, and you will be able to tell your grandparents what happened on this memorable night. We have to go.
Well, where are you going?
Well, you have something else to do.
That's right.
Yeah, okay. Try to get home early and get some food on.
And now you can get up and take a stretch. But don't go away, because we have something wonderful coming up.
After this brief intermission, Musical Comedy Tonight will continue with Sweet Charity, starring America's foremost dancer, Miss Juliet Prowse. We want to remind you that this is PBS, the Public Broadcasting Service, and that this program is made possible by grants from the Prudential Insurance Company of America, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and the National Endowment for the Arts. And now back to Musical Comedy Tonight.
We now take a 24-year leap over the hole in Adlai Stevenson's shoe, the deceptive calm of the Eisenhower years, the style and hope of Kennedy's 1,000 days in the White House, into the season of 1965-66, when President Johnson escalated the war in Vietnam and the Generation War was in full swing. Hippies were dropping acid and going to pot in Greenwich Village and Haight-Ashbury, very busy not washing their hair. Anyone over 30 was not to be trusted. Maybe that's why the old Metropolitan Opera House was condemned. After all, it was 83. There were riots in Watts, a revolution in Rhodesia, and the Civil Rights March from Selma to Montgomery made history. But the Beatles were living in a yellow submarine while the big blackout paralyzed Manhattan. Twiggy began her flat-out modeling career. And Mary Quant, as a put-on, raised the miniskirt to the micro. But it really took off, thus changing a put-on to a takeoff. Surveyor 1 made a soft landing on the moon, Elizabeth Taylor landed an Oscar, and the Palace Theater had a facelift for the opening of Sweet Charity. Neil Simon adapted it from the Fellini film Nights of Cabiria, moving it from the streets of Rome to the sleazy, seamy underside of New York. Schlock around the clock. The score by Cy Coleman and Dorothy Fields is versatile, tuneful, witty, and with it. But primarily, as in West Side Story before it and Chorus Line after it, in Sweet Charity, dance was the star of the show. And a star two people. On stage, Gwen Verdon, super dancer. Off stage, Bob Fosse, super choreographer, whose heart attack is well known to all of you. As a matter of fact, it was the first heart attack ever to be nominated for an Academy Award. But Bobby has a mantle full of Oscars and Tonys and Emmys, and one year he won the Triple Crown. Sweet Charity poses the question, can a dance hall hostess with round heels and a square heart ever find true love in marriage? The answer is, are you crazy? Although this problem is the world's oldest cliche, we chose it to show that it took musical comedy to make it electric, kinetic, touching, and comedic. In the opening scene, Sweet Charity, the dynamic schlep, manages not only to have a purse stolen, but gets thrown into the lake for good measure. This dampens her spirits only temporarily, and Charity, full of hope, goes back to the Fandango ballroom where the girls, led tonight by Annette Charles and Lorraine Fields, are about to lay it on the line.
The minute you walked in the joint, I could see you were a man of distinction, a real big spender, good looking, so refined. Say, wouldn't you like to know what's going on in my mind? So let me get right to the point. I don't pop my cork for every guy I see. Wouldn't you like to have fun? How's about a few laughs? I can show you a good time. Fun last good time. Fun last good time. Fun last good time. Hey, big spender. How's about it, Pansy?
One of the high points of Charity's life comes from a fortuitous sidewalk meeting with an Italian movie star who was one of her idols. To make his girlfriend jealous, he takes Charity to his apartment, but treats her with the utmost respect and courtesy. Charity is beside herself, her favorite position. Charity tonight is played by the star of the London Company, America's top-ranking dancer, Miss Juliet Prowse.
If they could see me now, that little gang of mine, I'm eating fancy chow and drinking fancy wine. I'd like those stumble bums to see for a fact the kind of first-rate top-drawer chums I attract. All I can say is, wow, look at where I am. Tonight I landed, pow, right in a pot of jam. What a setup, holy cow. They'd never believe it if my friends could see me now. See me now, alone with Mr. B, who's waiting on me like he was a maitre d'. I hear my buddies saying, crazy what is, tonight she's living like the other half lives to think the highest brow, which I must say is he, could pick the lowest brow, which there's no doubt is me. What a step up, holy cow, they know
Determined to get out, Charity, Nikki, and Helene share their dreams. Nikki wants to be a receptionist in a glass office building with coffee breaks. Helene wants to go straight to the top and become a hat check girl. Charity doesn't know what, but there's got to be something better than this.
There's got to be something better than this. There's got to be something better to do. And when I find me something better to do, I'm going to get up, I'm going to get out, I'm going to get out and do it.
There's gotta be some respectable trade. There's gotta be something easy to learn. And when I find me something I halfway can learn, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna get out and learn it. All these jokers, how I hate them, with their groping, grabbing, clutching, clenching, strangling, handling, mumbling, pinching, booing.
There's gotta be some life cleaner than this. There's gotta be some good reason to live. And when I find me some kind of life I can live. I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna get up, live it! Bully! Bully! Woo! When I find me some kind of life I can live, I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna get out. And live it.
So Charity live hopefully ever after, and so I hope may all of you.
If they could see now, that little gang of mine, I'm eating fancy chow and drinking fancy wine. I like those stumble bums to see for a fact, the kind of top drawer, first-rate chums I attract. All I can say is, while we look at where I am, tonight I landed, now riding a Where I am, tonight I landed. I was riding upon a jet. What a setup, holy cow. They will believe it if my friends will see me.
The preceding program was made possible by grants from the Prudential Insurance Company of America, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and the National Endowment for the Arts.